Come here, do this, do that. I was like, thank you.
I was thinking, putting it off.
speakers can use these two mics.
These two. Okay.
Yeah, but we will come and clean it up before you speak. So
And will you be cueing us? Will you be?
I will
You'll be
introduce you.
when it says.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I must apologise for not being in your regular touch, but I must assure you that I'm always reading
Thank you.
your music. When as soon as Connor asked me to come and speak to this, and then.
It's on the record, huh? Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, that's especially that's part of the indigenous group. Yeah. I've been in the blue zone since Monday. I was at the vigil.
So,
Vigil with and then yeah, they were in a bit of hypocrisy.
I mean, actually, the people who have got
I used to just say we're usually there by 8 o'clock, so that we can get in within 30 minutes. Otherwise, it just gets too crowded.
for that place we had. Sorry, I mean, even 2 years ago, again.
starting.
Yeah. Then I was.
Is it 5 minutes already? Woyo Goiso goinene ya Woyo Goiso Papua goinene ya Mam tatabi Rapago Haanim Saireri Mepago Domberai Bomberai. We are West Papua Melanesia. We are not Indonesia. Good afternoon, everybody. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of our ancestors, our fallen heroes, the people of West Papua, and the provisional government of West Papua, I would like to welcome you all. My name is Oro Dekap. I am West Papua's ambassador for the EU. We gathered here today for the launch of West Papua's Green State Vision. It's a pleasure for me, a great honor to be part of this historic day. Today we have 9 or 11 speakers. Considering the limited time we have, I ask our speakers to limit their contributions to 3 to 5 minutes, please. But before I give the floor to our distinguished speakers, I would like to ask Reverend James Bagwan to lead our launch with a prayer and maybe a few words, spiritual words, on behalf of the Conference of Pacific Churches. Please, Reverend, thank you.
May I begin by greeting us in the way of Papua. Wa, 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 Wah, wah. Nisambula Vinaka and warm Pacific greetings to you all. I acknowledge the people of the land of Alba, now called Scotland, the ancestors and current and future generations of elders. I acknowledge that this is colonized land and that intertwined deep in the identity of Scotland is the cry for freedom, the deep connection with the land and place and ongoing struggle for decolonization resonates with Pacific Island communities who are vulnerable to enduring colonization in many forms today, as well as the impact of climate change. I represent the Pacific Conference of Churches, the peak ecumenical body in the Oceania region. And since our establishment in 1961, a bond with Tana Papua, commonly known as West Papua, has existed, with the GKI Tana Papua Church being a founding member of the PCC. Today, the 4 largest indigenous churches, which also comprise the West Papua Council of Churches, are members of the PCC. Our Conference of Churches also played a role on the request of churches and communities in the formation of the ULMWP. And so today I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be part of this important event and perhaps to do what I do best, is say a prayer. This is our Pacific way. Before any important occasion, meeting, or piece of work begins, we seek a blessing for our endeavors in gratitude and in a call for our actions to be in line with the divine will. And prayer is also sometimes the only powerful action for those who are oppressed and disempowered. I will pray according to the Christian tradition, and I invite you to join me to use this perhaps as an opportunity to reflect and meditate on why we are here, or just take a moment to pause and center yourself, whatever your spirituality is. And so, in acknowledgement of the deep spirituality that permeates the communities of the Pacific and is at the heart of our Pacific households' relationship with each other and the environment, in acknowledgement of the spirituality that shapes our indigenous knowledge into wisdom and guides us to act with gentleness and gratitude for the abundance that surrounds us and gives us courage to stand firm in the whims of change, we lotu. Let us pray. Loving and embracing God, source of all light, life, truth, and love, creator, redeemer, and sustainer of the land, the sea, and the sky, of all that is seen and unseen. We give you thanks for your grace, your abundant love that is as vast and deep as the ocean which connects our islands. In these challenging times, we pray for the well-being of communities that continue to be ravaged by COVID-19, and for the protection of those on the front line and the most vulnerable. As we gather in Glasgow, as we gather and work for climate justice in our region and the whole world, to safeguard the health of the blue and green lungs of the planet, and that which we live and lives beneath the waves, those at risk, those suffering the impacts, and those experiencing displacement of both body and soul, we seek, O God, your wisdom and your righteousness for your leaders, your justice for those struggling under the boot of those who desecrate and exploit the land for profit and contribute to the increasing stress this planet, your household, is experiencing. We pray for those who have lost their lives in the 60 years of Indonesian invasion and oppression in Papua. We pray for those in Papua who risk their lives to safeguard the land, which are part of the green lung of this planet, rainforests, the abundance of biodiversity, threatened by greed and desire for profit over planet. We pray for those you have placed in your precious creation as stewards at risk of their lives. And today, O God, we seek your blessing on this green state vision, a vision in line with your vision for the earth, in line with the vision and the work of the sisters and brothers from the Pacific who seek to reweave the ecological mat that connects spirituality, indigenous knowledge, and wisdom for a truly sustainable model of development that puts environment at the center, not at the edge. Hear our prayer, the prayers of the people of Papua, the prayers of the people of the Pacific, the prayers of the people of the world. Amen.
Thank you for your words, Reverend Bhagwan. Your prayers are like the light which is shining in our darkness in West Papua. Almost a century ago, on October 25th, 1925, in Wasior, West Papua, late Reverend Isaac Samuel Kaina had a vision. He was standing on a rock, and he said, even though people have high righteousness, reason, and wisdom, but cannot lead this nation will rise up and lead itself. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to introduce you our interim president, His Excellency, Mr. Benny Benda.
Wah, 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 wah. Ay, wah, 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 wah. Today, I'm standing here with you on behalf of people of West Papua, made up of 250 tribes in West Papua. I welcome you all. Wah, 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 wah. Your Excellency, Honorable Member of the Parliament, Alex Obels, and guest speaker, on behalf of people of West Papua are today watching. This is historical event we are witnessing here in Glasgow, COP26. Before I speak, I want to everybody silent just 1 minute for people of West Papua who are suffer under Indonesian colonialism. Thank you. Today, heavy heart are speaking today. 2 weeks ago, one baby were killed, 2 years old in Intanjaya. 50,000 displacement, Intanjaya, Nduga, Oksibil, Maibarat, Sorong. They are in the bush, hiding. West Papua is island of the New Guinea. Before Indonesia and European arrived, these islands full of gold, full of rainforest, bird of paradise, 3 kangaroos. But today, the home of 3 kangaroos, home of bird of paradise, become home of the Indonesian military 21,000 troops in West Papua. The Nguni, the Nguni is a home of large rainforest, palm oil, in timber mining, a trans-Papua highway. All those things are destroying this forest. You cannot come to COP26 and talk about the climate justice, CO2 emissions, and saving the planet if you are not support West Papua. The Indonesian military protecting Freeport McMoran and BP as they take our natural resources and destroy our way of life. We have solution to the world climate crisis. You cannot separate indigenous West Papua from the forest and mountains and rivers. We are connected to them. We have to protect this green land, defend this rainforest for tens of thousands of years before European and Indonesia arrive. Our rainforest is a lung of the world. If you want to stop CO2 emission, you have to stop the deforestation of the Nguni rainforest. We are the ones who know how to do this. We are ready to govern our own affairs, protect the Nguni biodiversity, big power, the UN and the young generation all want to save the planet. You must save West Papua, save the planet, because West Papua bring the solutions. You are still looking for the solutions. In 2020, we launched our provincial governments and temporary constitutions. We have our cabinet, a government department, including Department of the Environment and Green State Policy, and the Department of the Right of All Beings. We are forming the ability to govern our own territory. The Green State vision will guide our movement to the goal. This is the vision state, the destination for our government in the waiting. The principle that we want to see in independent West Papua. The Green State vision is about indigenous Melanesia way of looking at the world. For us, we are the friends with the forest, the rivers, the mountain. We cannot destroy them, cut them down. We are rely on them. An independent West Papua will be made said part of its legal framework based on international proposal. We are serving notice on all companies operating in West Papua that must adhere its environment standard. If they do not, the independent government will consider revoke their right to operate. Our new state will be based on tribal democracy and green democracy. Our state will be based on not only on human rights, but on the right of all beings. In West Papua, indigenous lands' right will be placed above the right of companies to extract our resources. Indonesia try to build development on top of the bones of our people. We will protect our traditional way of life, refusing development at the cost of our natural world, because we are share one planet. We want to free democratic West Papua, where my people can feast and garden in the peace without being shot or tortured by Indonesia military and police. The environmental movement, the international community must stop the genocide and ecocide of my people in order to protect the planet Earth. If not, the Nguni rainforest will be destroyed and disappear by Indonesia. along with my people. We have shown the world that we are ready to run our own affairs. We have shown that we have the solution for the world. We have a government in waiting, our constitution, our cabinet. Now we have a vision to guide us to our goal of independence and beyond. If you not support us, you are making history in the struggle for survival for all humans and our planet. We are ready to give solution in the crisis, and we're ready to reclaim our sovereign state and ready to independent. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And now we would like to present you a video message from our Minister for the Environment and the Green State Policy, Mrs. Fanny Kogoya.
I cannot be there with you today, but my spirit is with you all. We West Papuans urgently need your support. Over 500,000 of us have been killed in this genocide. We need everyone to support us, especially the young generation. You in the international community have the power to make your government listen to please be our voice and help our voice to be heard. Indonesia is not killing us. Indonesia is not only killing us. Indonesia is only killing our nature, our environment. They are doing this because of their greed for our resources. With multinational companies, they are looting our sacred rainforests. They are working to destroy our planet. Our green state vision will place their power back into the hands of indigenous Papuans. We share this planet with all beings of the world, and we want all beings to be free with us. We believe the land is our mother. We want to keep our mother safe. Humanity cannot fight climate change if we do not support the solution of indigenous people. West Papua is the breathing lungs of the planet. To keep our planet lungs breathing, the world must support West Papua in our struggle for climate justice and freedom. Thank you for all your support.
I am Chairman of West Papua Council. I am support West Papua Green State.
West Papua Green State. Yes. West Papua freedom.
I am support West Papua
West Papua student from Paradise University and support West Papua as a green state #1 in world.
We support West Papua Green State.
West Papua green state. Papua Merdeka.
Okay. As you can hear in our native language, our people are very, very thankful for this chance, for this opportunity that we are able to sit here in a free and democratic country like Scotland, UK, to share our vision for tomorrow, a free and independent West Papua, not only for the region, but West Papua for the whole world. I don't know whether Honorable Patrick Gary is still able to say a few words. I understand that you had to leave before 1 o'clock. Our next speaker, okay, thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Honorable Patrick Gary, MP for Scottish National Party.
Thank you, everybody. I wasn't expecting to be asked to say a few words, but I'm delighted to welcome everybody to the city, my home city of Glasgow, and to express our solidarity with the people of West Papua. I've met Benny on a number of occasions over the years, long before I was a parliamentarian, and there is a solidarity, I think, among people around the world who are seeking a self-determination, autonomy, and at the very least a peaceful and democratic path to that, to have at least the chance and the choice about the future of their country. So the situations are not exactly parallel, but there is a solidarity there, I think, between liberation movements around the world. I think the vision that's being promoted today, the concept of West Papua as a green state, is incredibly encouraging, and this is a brilliant initiative to launch at COP26 when we need ambition, we need political leaders that will aspire to the highest possible challenges, to the highest possible level of ambition, because the entire future of the planet is at stake, and it is the ecosystems in the West Pacific, it is the ecosystems that are the most fragile, that are also the most valuable. That biological diversity that we've heard about, the green and blue lungs, which I think is an excellent way of helping us understand the role that both forests and oceans play in making the world what it is, and helping to sustain life and help life to flourish. Because if we don't have that basic level of survival, then the questions about political discourse become almost impossible. So thank you once again for your attendance. Thank you for coming to our city. I hope the weather, it's always sunny in Glasgow, even when there's clouds, the sun is still behind the clouds. So the sun is always shining on Glasgow, just as the sun shines on West Papua. So my best wishes and solidarity, and I look forward to continuing to work with Benny, with the campaign and the solidarity movements. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the kind words. And our next speaker is a good friend of West Papua, Jojo Mehta. She's the co-founder of Stop Ecocide, alongside barrister and legal pioneer, the late Polly Higgins, to support the establishment of ecocide as a crime at the International Criminal Court.
Thank you, and good afternoon. It feels very inspiring to be talking about this growing movement to support making destruction of nature an international crime, particularly in Scotland, because Polly Higgins, who did so much to publicise this concept and move it forward, was my dear friend, and we worked very closely together, and she was born in Glasgow. So it's a little bit like coming vicariously home. So the public campaign, Stop Ecocide, began in 2017 as a grassroots campaign to add mass damage and destruction of nature, or ecocide, to the list of international crimes, alongside genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. 4 years on, as humanity faces the unprecedented threat of climate and ecological breakdown, we find ourselves at the heart of a fast-growing global movement to support this addition to international criminal law. And the route we pursue is that of amending the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court to include a crime of ecocide. We all know you can't apply to a government to kill people for your new business, much as in practice this killing can happen, as West Papuans are tragically aware. But we know it's profoundly wrong and would never think to suggest it. However, we don't yet recoil in the same healthy way from destroying the natural world. Criminalising serious harm to nature at the highest level provides a strong moral foundation for that, by creating individual criminal responsibility for key decision makers at the highest level. And as ecocidal activities often take place in the global south and in poorer communities, while the key decisions are taken in the wealthy north, this law presents a hugely rebalancing potential within criminal justice for addressing issues of climate justice. And also it acts as a strong complement to the recently defined or recently approved a universal right to a clean, healthy and sustainable environment, which was just approved by the UN Human Rights Council a couple of weeks ago. Now, our right to life is protected, should be protected, by the fact that to take that life is a crime. And so creating a crime of ecocide is a complement to the right to a clean and healthy environment, and it's also a complement to the rights of all beings. As of June this year, there is a legal definition of ecocide drafted by a top international panel of criminal and environmental lawyers that was convened by our foundation. And the core text is very simple. Most environmental regulation goes on for pages and pages about exactly how many toxins you can use in what context. This comes down to one sentence. Ecocide means unlawful or wanton acts committed with the knowledge that there is a substantial likelihood of severe and either widespread or long-term damage to the environment being caused by those acts. It's as simple as that. It's simple and clear. It's based strongly on legal precedents, and it addresses the worst harms while also taking into account existing laws and reinforcing environmental laws that may be different in different jurisdictions. And as Benny Wender so brilliantly explained, West Papua is home to some of the world's most extensive, pristine rainforest, as well as some of the world's biggest reserves of gold and copper. And so it is no wonder that ecocide is deeply relevant to this territory, and also no wonder that the occupying power covets that territory so much. It therefore feels both right and necessary that today's proposal by the United Liberation Movement of West Papua and Provisional Government should include a crime of ecocide in its vision for an independent West Papuan green state. It is a law that is in alignment with the indigenous principles of care for all beings. As those who live in harmony with the earth and with the forest know, when you damage Mother Earth, there are consequences. That's not something we make up in our heads. That's a physical and spiritual fact. So this law is in alignment with those principles, and it protects the rights and habitats of all those beings, including the cultural traditions of West Papuans themselves. Ecocide is a powerful word. It's a powerful word to describe what's happening to our planet. It literally means to kill one's home. The moment we understand that word, we intuitively know it to be both dangerous and morally wrong. This has been deeply recognized in the Green State vision which is being launched here today. And we warmly support both the right of West Papuans to self-determination and their own determination to respect and protect the richly biodiverse ecosystems that make up their beautiful home. And that was the speech I wrote, but I just want to add something, because the prayer that the Reverend gave at the beginning and the words of Beniwenda talking about his homeland and the positivity and the offering that their community and their people are making to the world in the context of the oppression that they have suffered is unbelievably inspiring. And I often get asked around ecocide law, oh, what can ordinary people do? I said, look, I'm not an extraordinary person, the same as you. You know, we can switch our lights off a bit more often, or we can, you know, turn off the tap when we brush our teeth. But here is a people that after 60 years of oppression is standing up and saying, we have solutions for the rest of the world. And that's incredibly humbling and incredibly inspiring. And I just feel so honored to be able to stand here today. And thank you so much for the inspiration that is coming out of this small, inspiring, and yet oceanically huge-hearted and hugely inspiring country. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's okay. Thank you, Jojo. I'm sure you will finish what you and Mrs. Higgins started, and know that West Papua is a friend of your mission. Our next speaker is also a longtime friend of West Papua. Our distinguished speaker, Asad Rehman, is the executive director of War on Want, where he organizes to put an end to poverty and injustice. Welcome.
Thank you. This one? Thank you. Thank you very much, and solidarity greetings from War on Want to the West Papua people, and of course to our dear friend and comrade Benny. 70 years War on Want has stood with the peoples of the global south in the fight against colonialism and imperialism. And just as we've stood against them, with them against the fight against neoliberalism and climate injustice. And even today, I want to just express our solidarity that we stand, as we do with the people of Palestine, as we do with the people of Western Sahara, that we stand with the people of West Papua in their struggle for freedom. Now, we all know that this is a moment of multiple crises, not just a climate crisis, but a crisis of inequality. We've seen the killer fires and floods that devastate every part of the world, and we know we stand on the edge of catastrophe. And we also know that this is a deeply unjust and unequal world, an unjust and unequal world where, despite the abundance of wealth that there is, the majority of the world, of peoples of the world, struggle to barely live with dignity, and many struggle to survive. People denied the right to economic security, to health, to education, to the right to social protection, all the things that many of us, of course, take for granted. And this has taken place in the midst of a COVID health pandemic, which has exposed the sheer injustices that exist in this world as the rich have turned their back on the global south, hoarding vaccines whilst 10 million people lose their lives across the world. We know the reality, of course, of the spiraling debt crisis as more and more countries in the global south are trapped through a system of exploitation, spending more in repaying money to the banks in the global north than they are spending on protecting their own citizens, both from the COVID pandemic. And these are not by accident. They're not by accident. They're because of a product of a system of injustice that has been hardwired into our economic and political systems. And many of us can trace that back. The reason we talk about the importance of decoloniality in the climate movement is because the very system that says the lives of black, brown and indigenous people have no value was created in the shackles of slavery, and it was brought through in that gunboats of colonialism, and it's still in operation, of course, today in the realities of the occupations that we see around the world, but also deeply embedded in the climate crisis. Now, I want to just pay tribute to the Green State vision, because, you know, often here, there's a lot of talk about solutions, right? And we're in this crisis. We need to move from the call of just saying what's wrong to what we need. But our movements, our anti-colonial movements, our anti-imperialist movements did have that. They had a vision of their societies, of living in balance, right, with nature, of prioritizing people's health and well-being, of calling for public services, of health and education, of talking about envisioning a society. And of course, many of those movements were crushed. Those political leaders were killed. From Allende in Chile, to Albenz in Guatemala, to Mossadegh in Iraq. There have been countless of our movements that have built and fought for different visions. And this vision, this Green State vision, is a continuation of that legacy and that arc of our peoples in the global south, saying we have the solutions. We know what needs to be done. We need the political support and solidarity of people around the world in our struggle to realize these fights. And this is really important, an important point in this fight, because, you know, both outside of the climate negotiations, there's much talk about what does the future look like? What is our just transition? How are we building back, even if building back looks like building back the same? What will all of that look like? Now, that building back can't be limited to the global north, and neither can it be built on the continued exploitation and extraction of resources of the global south, whether it's the green colonialism of new metals and minerals that needed for our electric batteries, or the devastation in terms of the deforestation. And it's fascinating, over the last few days, you may have heard countless announcements being made by world leaders on deforestation, on energy. And what's really fascinating is those pronouncements are being made by alongside the very multinationals that have caused this crisis. The very multinationals that have taken us to the brink of catastrophe are now the ones telling us they have the solutions. That trust them, they will resolve this. That they will be the ones that will guide us to zero deforestation. They will be the ones that move us away from fossil fuels. Of course, that's a lie. We know that's a lie. We know that the reality is it's only when we have genuine democracy, when we put the control into the hands of people who have been the guardians of our spaces and our territories, indigenous people, that we will genuinely have, we will genuinely be able to protect, as we said, the heart, the lungs of this planet. And so that's why all around the world, whether it's the Green Vision, Eco-Social Pact, the Feminist Green New Deal, the Global Green New Deal, they're all coming together with 4 key principles, saying, yes, we must limit temperatures below 1.5, and that must be done fairly. But we must also tackle global inequality and poverty. We must live within balance of our planet, and so we cannot extract and continue to extract and build the economy of the future on the backs of the poor in the global south. But fourth, and it's just as critical, we must uproot the systems of oppression that have denied the people the right to a different vision and a different alternative. And that is uprooting the politics of colonialism and an occupation. And that's why, for the climate justice movement, I'm so proud that the call now of the climate justice movement includes the call about decoloniality, that includes the call about ending occupation, because we know only when we build a movement that connects our struggles, that has our vision, we'll make that call that we used to make decades ago. Another world is possible. The challenge is for us to make that another world possible. And here in this Green Vision is a blueprint of what the people of West Papua need and we envisage for their another world is possible. It's up to us to give them the political support and give them their solidarity in this fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Asad. So, thank you. And our next speaker is a family of us. She's also from the Pacific. Her name is Beverly Longit. She represents International Indigenous People Movement for Self-Determination and Liberation and the Merdeka West Papua Support Group Network. The second.
Good morning, everybody. In behalf of the International Indigenous Peoples Movement for Self-Determination and Liberation, and of course the West Papua Support Network, we congratulate the United Liberation Movement of West Papua in today's launch of the Green State Vision. In March of 2017, the International People's Movement for Self-Determination and Liberation hosted a study conference on West Papua together with the Anti-Imperialist International League of People's Struggles. One for one, many even among anti-imperialist activists really do not know the situation of what is happening in West Papua, and two, to really get a deeper understanding of what's happening in West Papua and the struggle in West Papua. So we had that study conference, and in that study conference, we set up the Merdeka Support Network. And the support network is our way of giving recognition to the legitimacy of the West Papuan struggle to self-determination and liberation, and the need for international solidarity that is rooted in broad anti-imperialist unity that is also parallel to the quest for just and lasting peace. That is why we also agree that this discourse on climate emergency, just like other issues in Papua and in the Pacific, should not be discussed separately on the issues of peace, on the issues of people's development, on the people's issues to right to self-determination and liberation. The occupation that West Papua is experiencing is, after all, fundamentally an issue of ownership and management of Papua's natural resources. It is an issue of Papua's patrimony. It is an issue of West Papua's independence. While there is a facade, especially among fascist states, that there is supposedly growing recognition of indigenous peoples as stewards of the environment, the attacks against us and other indigenous peoples advocates remain relentless as we are displaced, threatened, and even killed when we stand against or merely get in the way of anti-environment and anti-people projects that are made or implemented or mislabeled as national development projects. We stand in solidarity with West Papua, who have been called separatists, who have been called terrorists, like many indigenous activists or environmental activists, defending our rights to ancestral territories and communities from plunder, and give due honor and recognition to the brave activists, people's organizations and movements, including the ULMWP and its local chapters. Who have consistently asserted the right to self-determination and liberation. We also hope that this vision is able to define or redefine green, what green is, in contrast to how this concept is manipulated by multinational and transnational corporations and even financial institutions to forward market-based solutions in the name of nature-based, community-based, people-based solutions that do more damage to the environment, which also need to be exposed in the course of our struggle. The role of US imperialism and other imperialist countries need to be exposed in the issue, in the climate crisis debate. Finally, we are glad to be part of this historic event and look forward to the materialization of this vision in the present struggle as well as in the future victory of the West Papua people over their land and territory. West Papua will never be green until and unless the colors of blue, red, and white of the morning star flies freely, solely over West Papua. Matago-tago takulusan, long live international solidarity, Merdeka, West Papua.
Thank you, Sister Beverly. We are very glad that our Pacific Mission, Brother Ronnie Kareni, has asked us to ask you to say some words. So thank you for all the hard work in our region. Our next speaker is a longtime friend of West Papua. I would like to invite Honorable Alex Sobel, MP, Labour, and also Chair of the International Parliamentarians for West Papua. Please, a second.
Thank you, Oridek. It's an absolute honour to be here today. I've been working with Benny Wenda for over 15 years on the liberation of the people of West Papua. And today marks a new chapter in that. The second time I met Benny after I became a Member of Parliament, I said to Benny, what about the environmental destruction of West Papua by the Indonesian government and by companies based in the United Kingdom, Europe, the United States, Australia, etc.? Because we all know about the Grasberg mine. We all know about BP and its activities in West Papua, a flag-carrying company of our country. And then we talked about deforestation, the role of palm oil, and the fact that Indonesian government talk about building infrastructure in West Papua as though it benefits the people. That infrastructure, those roads are being built so it's easier to extract the natural resources from the land of the West Papuans to sell overseas and enrich the coffers of the Indonesian government in Jakarta. The land is the land of the Indonesian Melanesian people. It is not the land of those sat in Jakarta enriching themselves off their backs and off their land. And today, the Green State Vision is part of what I consider three stools of the campaign to free West Papua. Human rights, which we mainly talk about. When we talk about West Papua, we mainly talk about human rights. Social justice, we know how poor the people in West Papua and how poorly treated they are in every area by the Indonesian state. And today, about environmental justice. So I'm just going to concentrate on that for a second. Why is New Guinea, the island of New Guinea, of which West Papua is a large part, so important? Few places on earth rival the diversity of New Guinea. From dense tropical rainforest to coastal mangroves, the island's home to some of the world's most unique plants and animals. Not my words, the words of WWF. After the Amazon and Congo, New Guinea is home to the third largest rainforest in the world. It has unique species, including kangaroos that climb trees, carnivorous mice, giant pigeons and rats bigger than domestic cats, and more orchid species than any other place on the planet. These are all under threat from logging, mining, wildlife trade, agricultural plantations, and the marine species from oil and gas exploration. This Green State Vision is there not just to protect the people of West Papua, but to protect those animals and those plant species who cannot speak for themselves. And in every country in the world, they have a stake in it. Because this summer I went to Chester Zoo. And I was walking around Chester Zoo, and what did I see? I saw some tree kangaroos from West Papua. So as well as Benny being a little piece of West Papua in the United Kingdom, we have tree kangaroos from West Papua. And millions of people go to our zoos in the UK and around the world, and they all see these animals, but they do not understand the political threat to their lives that is being engendered by the Indonesian government. And we can take that message. So we often talk about what does international solidarity mean and who are we talking about. I'm the chair of the International Parliament of West Papua, so I try and engender international solidarity through parliamentarians and through governments to create political support to deal with human rights through the UN, through nation-state governments and work towards self-determination and independence West Papua. But international solidarity also means creating international solidarity with activists and NGOs who are here, means with the media world to shine a light on what's going on, but also environmentalists and conservationists. And I hope today this Green State vision means that every environmentalist and conservationist, when they talk about the threats to our global ecosystem, they don't just talk about the things that we normally hear about, but they also talk about West Papua and the threat to the land and the species and the biodiversity there, alongside all of us who campaign, whether it's on human rights or on social justice or on any other aspect of West Papua. And this Green State vision, as others have said, isn't really a vision or something that you'd see from an NGO. It is the sort of vision you would see from a nation-state government. We are seeing the development of an alternative government to that which sits in Jakarta, ready to go and take power and to protect this precious and vital land. And we're all here today, and we need to go be evangelists and advocates for this vision and for the people of West Papua, alongside all the other indigenous people around the world whose rainforests and habitats are under threat. And that's what internationalism means to me. That's why I support West Papua, and that's why I support this green vision that we're launching today. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Alex Sowell, for the kind words. You've been a long-time friend of West Papua. We surely hope that with this material you will do your best to approach all the European MPs in this cause, not only for West Papua, but for the region and all the indigenous peoples. Our last but not least speaker is a new friend. He's a new friend of West Papua. His name is Nick Dearden. He's the director of Global Justice Now. He's also the public face of the organization. Please.
Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me. I know we've all said we're honored, but I mean, I really am so honored to be here today, because not only have the people of West Papua got their work cut out fighting for their independence against a brutal occupation, they have also managed to put forward a more compelling and coherent vision for how we deal with climate change than anything we've seen from the world's wealthiest countries down the road this week. So my solidarity to you. You know, what we've seen is this week at COP is the leaders of wealthy countries proving yet again that they cannot and will not do what is necessary to fight the climate emergency. And far from bedding the principles set out in this wonderful Green State vision, they're doing everything possible to keep the existing power structures in the world in place, and doing as little as possible as late as possible. But the reason that this event is just so important is that, you know, we've seen time and again throughout history, Assad spoke about it earlier, that things only change when those who are exploited and oppressed and marginalized by the system begin to take matters into their own hands. And that's what we're seeing here. And I think, you know, when we come away from COP at the end of next week, we really need to hold ourselves together and not despair at what comes out of it, but to begin to look at those movements around the world that we can take inspiration and hope from. And the role of movements and of local, regional, and national governments, especially across the global south, where the effects of climate change are worse, even if the responsibility is least, are going to be absolutely vital. And so I think this vision is not just important in itself for the ideas that are in it, and I commend it to everyone, and please read it and begin fighting for some of these ideas in our own country. Not just important for itself, but as a symbol of hope and inspiration. Now, I've been fighting and campaigning and working to change the global economic rules, the rules of our global economy, which is monopolistic and rent-seeking and extractivist and neo-colonial to its core. I've been working to change those for 20 years, and I know that 20 years ago, the thing that made a real difference was movements of oppressed people around the world fighting for their rights. The Zapatistas in Mexico was so inspirational in making me an internationalist and making me do what I do today, essentially. And then a few years later, to have a set of really powerful governments across Latin America, more or less saying the same things that we were, that allowed us to fight back against big business, to fight back against the logic of subjecting everything to profit, and of making some really very significant victories. And the movements that Assad talked about, I mean, the incredible names from history of Thomas Sankara and Salvador Allende and Benz and Julius Nyerere and Patrice Lumumba and on and on and on, names of individuals that symbolize the strength and courage of millions of people, have always been vitally, vitally important to us in being able to make change here. And I think that this is the modern equivalent. This is our equivalent today of that. To see a people fighting for its freedom, able to put forward a vision and ideas like this. And I think, and I'll end with this, I think that it's also important for another reason. It reminds us as climate activists and environmental activists of the deep linkages between climate change and the climate crisis and colonialism, because the climate crisis is built on a colonial mindset and a colonial global economy, which we still have. You know, it's really interesting that if we'd been here 200 years ago, we would also have had a British government lecturing the world that free trade and the free market was the answer to all of their problems. Right? And you try telling that to the millions of people who died unnecessarily in famines, not because they didn't have any food, but because the market wouldn't give them that food because they weren't wealthy enough. Today, we have a British government again telling us that free trade and the free market is going to provide all that we need in order to create a sustainable and healthy world. And of course, that's absolute nonsense, as we know. This vision is something fundamentally different. And I think who better to put that forward, who better to lead the intertwined battle against the injustices of climate change and colonialism than a country which is still experiencing some of the most brutal impacts of colonial economy and of colonial culture. So I just want to say a huge thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for doing this. And I hope we can work together in the years ahead to build a better world.
Thank you, Nick. We surely hope that you will be a long-term friend of West Papua and the region, but the whole world. Thank you, Nick. We have come to the part, the Q&A part for the media, but yeah, maybe you in the audience, if you have any questions for our speakers who are still here, please, you have 10 or 15 minutes to ask. Do we have any mic for the public? Sir, maybe you can come forward. I will just pass it. Sorry.
Thank you for your chance. I'm Gary, and
your question, please.
All right. Please don't get me wrong. This is just a way to, to improve my connection with you and to keep things balanced. And my question is, why do you guys, Mr. Benny Wanda, the president of West Papua, and all the people in here, not representing West Papua from the provincial government of Papua or West Papua in Indonesia, while the governor of West Papua, is Lukasenembe, is Papua origins, original Papuans, Papuan indigenous. The head police of Papua, Paulus Waterpa, is Papua indigenous. Head military of Papua is Papuan indigenous.
Can you, your question, please?
And the question is, why don't you represent them from your own land rather than in here?
No, the answer is simple. West Papua is occupied.
No.
I guess you are from Indonesia. You are from Indonesia, I assume. We cannot be there because when we are there, they will kill us, Mr. Benuenda, and they will kill me. So that's the reason. That's why we do it here.
Your governor is Papua indigenous.
Oh, please, our brother, Reverend, will answer the question.
All right, that doesn't make sense, all right?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, welcome. Please.
The Indonesian government is a signatory to a number of conventions that are supposed to guarantee the civil and political rights of its citizens. It is supposed to do so also under the so-called special autonomy law. Yet people who express their rights as indigenous people, express their voice that is alternative to the government, are routinely harassed and brutalized. When we began, we had a moment of silence for a baby that was killed. For the last 60 years, 500,000 people have been killed. If these people go back home, they will be targeted. They are in exile. And if you know your world history, many people who have stood up for their country have been driven into exile. And that is what they have to do in order to ensure that their voice of the people is able to be heard. The ULMWP is not an organization that exists on its own outside of Papua. It was formed by a collaboration of movements within Papua and outside Papua. And they have been asked to be the voice of their people. So it's not about, it's not the issue of why are they not in Papua. Even to raise the flag, which is a symbol of identity of the Papuan people, which under one previous president was okay, is now punishable, right? And so these people, even here, risk many things. They risk the loss and separation from their families. But they continue to struggle in hope. And that is why so many people around the world are supporting them. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you. Okay, thank you. It's all part of this evening, so no worries. So you can see that what we are saying, it's true. If there's other question from you in the public, yeah, what's your name and what's your name? Yeah. Can you take off your glasses, please? Yeah. No, please take off your glasses. Sir, take your glasses. Can you please take off your glasses? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Johnny.
Mm.
I just wonder if I might ask you, are you aware of killing by Papua's Human Rights Group? If I can beautifully take an example. In September, they murdered and assaulted a nurse working in Kira Health Facility. When she died with her team, to the best of her, to the love of her,
Okay. What's your question, please? What's your question?
to give the best service of health to the love of the indigenous West Papua.
Brother, you know that's not true. I can answer the question.
My uncle lived in Papua.
Okay, it's okay. He's welcome, but you should know. Okay, yeah. Guys, you are welcome here. We are living in a democratic country. But you should know, you as Indonesian, we welcome you in our country. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You are coming from the embassy. Yeah. Okay. Okay, let Benny, let our president answer the question.
Okay, is there a question?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah. 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 Okay. No. Yeah. Hey, guys, you are from the embassy. Tell Jokowi, please tell Jokowi, we don't need your road, we don't need your transportation. Tell Jokowi, please tell Jokowi, Papua mau merdeka. Kasih tahu Jokowi, Papua mau merdeka. Kamu pulang keluar, Papua mau merdeka. Keluar. Yeah. 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 Okay. Say bye-bye, Jokowi. Bye-bye, Jokowi. Say bye-bye, Jokowi. Please, bye-bye, Jokowi. Guys, apologies for this, but this kind of things happens everywhere, even here in Scotland. But they always send people to come and disturb our meetings. We try to explain our situation, but they always come and tell, if you don't believe the story, please look it up on the internet. Of course, Honorable
Myself as the chair of the National Parliamentarians West Papua, Benny, the Vanuatuan government and many others have tried to get the UN Human Rights Committee to go to West Papua to investigate all of these claims. The ones that Benny has brought and others in the movement on the ground are well documented with pictures and videos. The ones that come from the Indonesian government, the Indonesian Embassy and Security Services are not well documented. But what we need is the United Nations to go in. But it's been blocked because which country is a member of the UN Human Rights Commission? Indonesia. Indonesia should be, if this is all true, they should be welcoming and starting that process themselves as a member of the committee. But actually they block that at the committee and ensure that human rights violations in West Papua are not investigated. What we need to see is openness, transparency and clarity on these matters. And that is bringing in the UN, bringing in the international media, bringing in NGOs and others, and opening up West Papua to the world. But it is shut, it is closed, it's a closed state. And that's what the Indonesian government wants. And that's why we can't believe people who come from the embassy and from the security services.
I'm just going to make a quick response also, because I was in the last international group to be allowed into Papua in 2019 as part of a World Council of Churches delegation, where we heard firsthand from the people about what they are suffering as a result of the oppression by the regime. We have seen that again later in 2019 with the very racially motivated riots that took place. And I just want to also respond to the question about infrastructure development. Infrastructure development is all well and good if you have the free, prior, and informed consent of the indigenous people of the land. And until you have that, that is not development. That is desecration of the land. Thank you.
I come from the Philippines, and we also have a similar experience with West Papua. So if West Papua has been fighting a liberation movement for the past 60 years, the Philippines has been fighting also a liberation movement for the past 50 years. I hope the two young men would understand that the issue of West Papua is not an issue between the peoples of Indonesia and the peoples of West Papua, because they also are similarly oppressed and exploited by the capitalists and the bureaucrat capitalists in the Indonesian government. And that is something that we hope that they will be able to understand in the process as we further inform them on what is happening in West Papua. Two, I would agree that the human rights cases, if indeed true, should be properly investigated. If indeed true, it should also be condemned in the same manner that we condemn the atrocities of the Indonesian army against the West Papuan people. But let us also not forget that the ones in power are the Indonesian state, and they have a bigger obligation under international human rights law and under international humanitarian laws to respect the rights of the peoples of West Papua. I do hope, if they are still around, our friends from Indonesia, I think the United Liberation Movement of West Papua is open to a dialogue based on mutual respect of principles instead of hurling baseless accusations.
Thank you, everyone, for the extra explanation of the situation in our region. I would like to invite our interim president to give a closing remark. And after that, we would like to invite you for some refreshments that are ready behind you. So please, Mr. Interim President.
Again, thank you very much. You have talent. Challenge means you win the battle. Today, I would like to thank you, all the guest speaker. Today to speak brilliantly, and this vision is a state vision. Without your support, we never fulfill this vision. Indonesia is saying that, why you not in West Papua? I was put in prison 25 years, that flag, back in 2001. 3 times they want to kill me in prison, I managed to run away. Just like Nelson Mandela, they put in prison all his life. If I'm not escaped, I will be in prison. But I'm here with you. But my people are in prison. I can speak on behalf of those in prisons. Like Victor Jaimo, he is in prison. Many West Papuans speak out injustice. They're all in prisons. As I mentioned, 20,000 troops in West Papua now currently operate in the Intan Jaya, Puncak Jaya, Nduga, Oksibil. And 2 weeks ago, as I mentioned, just 2 babies, one of them already died, 2 years old. This is a recent one. Sometimes heart cry, but we are making a lot of progress. These green visions, this is never happen without support, without your support. I would like to thank you, teamwork of Green State Visions. Last 3 months working with this, produced this brilliant booklet. Sloan Law, international lawyer for West Papua, all your hard work to supporting my visions for the destiny of my people. Today, we're launching these visions, supported by West Papua, 7 regions, Domberai, Lapago, Mepago, Bomberai, Animha, 7 regions. West Papua Council of Churches in West Papua. Whole West Papua watching today. This is historical event we're launching today. We're ready to take over our country. We're ready to reclaim our sovereign state who was stolen by Indonesia back in 1963. This is the beginning. West Papua is a lung of the world. West Papua is a bring the solutions. The world leaders are looking for solutions, but we're already offering the solutions today. We have few of us here, but thousands of our people are supporting these divisions. Thank you very much, Reverend James Bagwan. Your prayer and your support. Alex Sobel MP is leader of the International Parliamentarian for West Papua and great speaker, Warren, and our sister, Beverly, great speech. Give us confidence that one day we will be free. And you are making history. You are part of the making history. Human being making history. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We would also like to thank Nick Dearden and all the other speakers who had to leave. Before we offer you some refreshment, we would like to ask Reverend James Bagwan again to close our lunch with a prayer.
Sorry, this is the really Pacific way. We start with a prayer, we end with a prayer, and then we eat. That's how you know Papua is part of the Pacific. Let's pray. Oh Lord, bless the dreams and visions of your children of Papua. Bless this gift that it offers and that they offer through this vision, this Green State vision to the world at a time that it is desperately searching for an answer, for life in abundance for all creation. We continue to pray, O Lord, for those who struggle for justice and righteousness, who remember the words of your Son, that you are blessed when you are persecuted for righteousness' sake. Bless the refreshments, bless the struggle, and bless all, O God, who continue to uphold the people of Papua in their hearts and in their hands and in their lips in the work that we do together for justice, for peace, for freedom, for the people of Papua and all who struggle. We remember today also, O God, other peoples of the Pacific, the peoples of Mauhinui, in the land known as French Polynesia, of Kanaki, in the land known as New Caledonia, who struggle also for their liberation, for their right to self-determination, and determine the future and the protection of their land and their sea. We uphold all those who struggle around the world. And as we work together for a solution to the climate emergency, may we remember that each one of us has a responsibility to play. This is our prayer in your name. Amen.
Okay. Okay, we've come to an end. Like I said, we have prepared some food and refreshments. You're very welcome to eat, and maybe if there's a chance, sorry, if there's a chance for a chat, you're free to do that. Thank you very much. Papua Merdeka! Papua! Oh, there's a picture moment for the speakers who are still available, and interim president. Yes.
Share it on our. Come, sister. Otherwise, I tend to block everybody on the Pacific side stuff. That was the official selfie.
That was yeah, quality.
We are used to them in future.
Yeah. Sorry.
They can't be our friend.
I almost lose my control.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was trying to tell you. That's why you have the pasta to keep everybody
Yeah,
calm.
thank you, Reverend. Thank you. Or should I have said pastor instead of reverend?
No, Reverend. I'm Reverend.
Okay.
Some people call pastor, some people call
Oh,
Reverend.
okay. Sorry. Thank you.
My nickname, they call me Padre.
Padre.
Bridge
Oh,
Mama.
Spanish. Yeah.
I gave Patrick mine, so would you give me a few? Give me a few.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
How long are you here for?
Probably until Monday.
Are you going to come on